She thought she was just saving a stranger from the rain, but that night she stepped into a war she didn't know existed. By the time the cab drove away, Maya had no idea she had just inherited a hotel and a fight that could cost her everything. The rain came down in sheets, hammering the cracked pavement until it glistened like black glass under the glow of a single flickering streetlight. Maya Williams tugged her hoodie tighter around her shoulders as she locked the side door of the Velvet Lantern Inn. The night air was heavy with the smell of wet asphalt and frying oil from the late-night bodega 2 blocks over. It was 3:00 a.m., the hour when even the city's noise seemed to lose its edge, when the Bronx felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. That's when she saw him. A figure stood hunched near the curb, half in shadow, half in the glare of a puddle that caught the streetlight. His coat, far too fine for this neighborhood, was soaked through, clinging to his frame. For a second, Maya thought he was just waiting for a ride, some rich man lost after a dinner in Manhattan and somehow dropped here by mistake. But then his knees buckled. He pitched forward, face first, into the water pooling at the gutter. "Damn," Maya hissed under her breath, her sneakers already splashing across the street before she even knew she was moving. Behind her, a sound cut through the rain. Low voices, rough with amusement. She glanced left. 2 men in hooded jackets were leaning against the shuttered liquor store across the way, cigarette tips glowing red. One of them nudged the other and jerked his chin toward the man on the ground. The other grinned, slow and mean. They pushed off the wall and started crossing the street, their steps deliberate, unhurried. Maya's pulse spiked. She reached the man first, kneeling in the freezing water as her fingers found his shoulder. "Hey," she said, trying to make her voice cut through the rain. "Sir, you okay?" He groaned, barely audible. Up close, she saw details that didn't fit. The luxury watch slipping on his wrist, the gold cufflinks half hidden beneath the soaked sleeve. His wallet had fallen from his coat pocket, lying inches away in the mud. She snatched it up and shoved it into her hoodie pocket before the rain could ruin it. The men were halfway across now, 12 steps away, 10. "Nope," Maya muttered, hooking her arms under the man's and hauling with all the strength her tired body could manage. He was heavier than he looked, his head lolling against her shoulder, but his legs stumbled forward enough to keep from dragging. She half dragged, half pushed him toward the side staff entrance of the Velvet Lantern. Her shoes slipped on the wet pavement as she shoved the door open with her hip and pulled him inside. The hallway light buzzed overhead, casting its tired yellow glow on the chipped tile floor. Maya didn't look back, didn't dare, until she'd eased the man down onto the bench by the laundry room. His hair was plastered to his forehead, his breathing shallow but steady, heavy with whiskey. "Great," she muttered, brushing wet strands from her own face. Her hoodie clung to her skin, cold enough to make her shiver. She rifled quickly through the wallet, not to steal but to find out who in the world he was. One of the business cards inside was gold-trimmed, embossed with a name she had seen before, though never this close. Harvey Whitmore. Maya blinked, almost laughed, then stopped when she heard the sound of footsteps outside. She crept to the small window by the staff entrance and peered out. The 2 men were standing there now, just beyond the pool of light, their hoods up, faces shadowed. They watched the door for a long beat, then one spat into the gutter and turned away. The other followed, glancing over his shoulder once before disappearing into the rain. Maya's chest rose and fell in sharp bursts as the adrenaline ebbed. She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling, and called for a cab. When it arrived, she handed the driver a 50 from her own tips and leaned into the window. "Don't charge him. Just get him home. He's out of it." The cabbie raised an eyebrow, then nodded. Maya helped Harvey into the back seat, fastening the belt across him. For a second, his head lolled toward her shoulder and he murmured something, words slurred but soft. "You good people," he mumbled. "Don't forget, you're the kind that matters." Maya swallowed hard, closed the door gently, and stepped back as the cab pulled away. Its taillights glowed red against the fog until they vanished down the street. She stood there for a long moment, soaked to the bone, watching the rain ease into a mist. Something about this night felt different, heavier, the kind of night that changed things, though she couldn't yet say how. She turned, went back inside, and peeled off her wet hoodie. The clock above the desk read 3:52 a.m., just another night at the Velvet Lantern. Except it wasn't. Somewhere deep down, Maya knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. The next Thursday came heavy with the smell of rain again, though the skies were clear. Maya stood behind the bar folding cocktail napkins, the clock ticking toward noon. The Velvet Lantern was quiet except for the faint buzz of the soda gun compressor and Carla hum. Ming from the kitchen. Maya liked this hour, the pause before the lunch rush, before the noise swallowed everything. The front bell chimed. She didn't look up right away. Probably Mr. Travers again, the regular who complained about the price of iced tea but never tipped more than a nickel. "Afternoon," she called, reaching for another stack of napkins. "Excuse me." The voice was smooth, polished. The kind of voice that belonged on boardrooms and TED Talks, not in a worn-out Bronx hotel lobby. Maya looked up and froze. Standing just inside the doorway was the man she had dragged from the gutter a week ago. But tonight there was no rain, no staggering, no whiskey breath. He stood straight, hair combed back, the faint silver at his temples catching the light. His suit was perfect, midnight blue, tailored to move like a second skin. His shoes were black leather, polished so bright they seemed to drink in the sunlight coming through the door. The whole lobby went still. Even Anthony, the desk clerk, peeked around the corner. Maya's fingers clenched the napkin until it tore. "You look like you're walking just fine," she said, her voice flat. "Guess the cab did its job." He stepped closer, his presence filling the space until the air seemed thinner. "It wasn't the cab that saved me that night," he said quietly. "It was you. Anyone would have done the same. Then it's a shame no one else did." His gaze flicked around the room, the faded wallpaper, the scuffed counter, the tired chandelier above them, then back to her. "I looked into you, Miss Williams." The words made something inside her tighten. "I'm sure you did," she said, folding her arms. "You dropped out of college to care for your mother," he said, his tone even, factual, but sharp enough to cut. "You've worked 3 jobs at once to keep her in a care home. You've kept this place running while the manager stole from it, and you've personally paid for more guest damages than any employee should." Maya's stomach nodded. "You make a lot of assumptions for someone who was unconscious the last time we met." "I'm not assuming." He reached into his coat and pulled out a slim leather folder, setting it on the bar between them. "I'm stating facts, and facts deserve action." "What is this?" "Your future," he said simply. "I own this property. I was ready to liquidate it. Underperforming, poor management, no profit. I was going to sell it for parts. But then you pulled me off a street no one else would cross, and I realized this place still has one thing worth saving. Let me guess. Me?" He nodded once. Maya's heart pounded hard enough that she could feel it in her throat. "If you came here to fire me," she said, "you came overdressed. I'm not firing you." His eyes were steady, almost unnervingly calm. "I'm offering you ownership." The napkin slipped from her hand, fluttering to the floor like a white flag. For a moment there was no sound, just the old chandelier creaking above them. Carla had appeared from the kitchen now, pretending to wipe down the counter while eavesdropping shamelessly. "You're joking," Maya said. "I don't joke with legal contracts," Harvey replied. "Everything you need is in there. Transfer documents, debt clearance, renovation grants. My ATT. Orny will walk you through every line." "And if I say no?" "Then I walk away," he said, his expression unreadable. "And this place becomes another vacant building with plywood in the windows." Maya stared at the folder like it might bite her. The room seemed smaller, the walls closer. "You think this is some kind of fairy tale?" she asked finally. "Some billionaire redemption story where the poor waitress gets a castle?" Harvey's smile faded. "This isn't about redemption. It's about recognition. You saved my life. This is me putting something back where it belongs. I don't need your recognition." "No," he said softly. "But you deserve it." The silence stretched so long that Maya could hear the rain gutter outside still dripping from last night's storm. She felt every eye in the lobby on her, waiting. "I need time," she said finally, her voice lower now, almost steady. "You have it." He slid the folder closer to her, his hand brushing the edge of the bar before he stepped back. "But don't wait too long. Some offers expire." He turned and walked out the door, leaving the folder sitting there like a live wire. The bell above the door chimed once and went still. Carla leaned on the bar, eyebrows raised. "Girl," she whispered, "you just got handed a miracle." Maya didn't answer. She just stared at the folder until her reflection stared back at her in its glossy leather cover. Miracle or trap? She couldn't yet tell. But either way, it had just changed everything. The folder sat on Maya's kitchen table like it was watching her. The whole apartment was quiet except for the hum of the laundromat below, the distant thump of a dryer spinning at midnight. Maya sat cross-legged on her futon, hoodie still on, staring at the leather cover without opening it. Her phone lay face down beside her. No missed calls, no texts, no distractions. Finally, she exhaled sharply, reached forward and flipped the folder open. The first page was so clean it almost felt smug. A formal letter addressed to Miss Maya Williams, congratulating her on the opportunity to become the sole proprietor of the Velvet Lantern Inn. Beneath it, page after page of legal documents, ownership transfer deeds, debt clearance statements, renovation grants, signatures already notarized, dates already stamped. All that was missing was hers. Maya's stomach turned. It wasn't just an offer. Harvey Whitmore had already set the pieces in motion. She pushed back from the table and stood, pacing across the tiny apartment. This was too easy, too clean. Nobody just gives something like this away, not without strings. She grabbed the folder again, flipping deeper. That's when she saw the financial records. A thick stack of vendor invoices, service contracts, supply orders. On paper, it all looked normal. Cleaning services, elevator maintenance, HVAC diagnostics. But the amounts made her pause. Almost every charge was just under $5,000, always $4,800, $4,900, never more. Her gut twisted. That wasn't an accident. That was some law. They deliberately staying under an audit threshold. She sat back down and pulled her laptop onto the table. One by one, she began typing in the vendor names: Elmage Cleaning Company, Metro Fire Systems, Briarstone Holdings. The first search turned up nothing. No website, no business registry listing. The second search led to a page that redirected to a broken link. The third, nothing again. Her pulse picked up. She called one of the numbers listed on an invoice, pressing the phone to her ear as she stared at the rain-slicked window. After 3 rings, a robotic voice answered, "This number has been disconnected." She tried another, same result. By the 4th call, her hand was shaking. "Maya, girl, it's past midnight." She nearly jumped out of her skin as Carla's voice came through the door of her apartment. Carla lived 2 floors down, always had a sixth sense about when Maya was spiraling. "I'm fine," Maya lied too quickly. "Liar, open the door." Maya hesitated, then unlocked it. Carla stepped in, wearing pajama pants and holding 2 mugs of tea. "Your lights are on at 1 in the morning," she said. "That usually means trouble or heartbreak. Which is it tonight?" Maya gestured to the table. "Both." Carla set the mugs down and flipped through a few of the papers, her brow furrowed. "Elmage Cleaning? I've never seen their people in here." "Exactly. And look at the dates. We paid them every month. Thousands." Carla let out a low whistle. "Carl's name is on half these signatures." Maya nodded grimly. He wasn't just lazy, he was bleeding this place dry. Carla sat down, her face serious now. "So what are you going to do?" Maya stared at the folder for a long moment. Then she closed it carefully and stood. "Tomorrow I'm opening the office. I want every file, every invoice, every receipt. If I'm signing my name to this place, I'm going to know what's buried under the floorboards first." That night she barely slept. Every sound outside her window, a car door slamming, a siren 2 blocks away, footsteps on the stairs, made her flinch. At 3:12 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging." No name, no signature, just 2 words glowing against the black screen. Maya sat there in the dark, heart hammering. For a moment, she thought about deleting it, pretending she never saw it, pretending none of this was her problem. Then she took a screenshot, saved it to a locked folder, and placed the phone face down. She wasn't walking away. Whatever this was, scam, scheme, trap, it had chosen the wrong woman to scare. The office behind the lobby had always been forbidden territory. Maya had only seen glimpses of it back when Carl was running things, usually when he'd storm out in a cloud of cigar smoke, barking about liquor orders or payroll mistakes. Now, for the first time, she stood in the doorway with the keyring she'd found last night rattling in her hand. The air inside smelled stale, tinged with old tobacco and dust. The blinds were drawn, the room locked in a perpetual twilight. Papers littered the desk, some curling with moisture, others stained from years of neglect. A calendar from 2014 still hung on the wall, the days frozen in a month no one cared to remember. Maya flicked on the light. The single bulb overhead buzzed like a hornet. She shut the door behind her and started digging. Invoices, stacks of them, vendor receipts, delivery slips, ledgers that went back years. She sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting them into piles, her jeans coated with dust by tow. Key hours end. Patterns emerged, names she'd already seen on the folder at home. Elmage Cleaning, Metro Fire Systems, Briarstone Holdings. Every charge neat, precise, always just under $5,000. It wasn't just sloppy bookkeeping, it was a siphon. At noon, Anthony poked his head in. "You been in here all morning?" Maya nodded, holding up one of the invoices. "Anthony, have you ever seen someone from Elmage Cleaning?" He frowned. Nope. Carl always said they came by at night. Did you ever see a receipt for new filters, new equipment, anything? Anthony shook his head slowly. No. Why? Maya didn't answer. She was already reaching for the bottom drawer of the desk. It wouldn't budge. Locked. She dug through the keyring until she found one small enough to fit, turned it, and felt the latch click open. Inside were 3 black ledgers. She sat back on her heels, heart thudding. The first one was labeled in Carl's messy scrawl. March, laundry diversion. She flipped it open. The pages were filled with cramped handwriting and numbers, columns that never appeared in the official records, payments sent to names she didn't recognize. Hundreds, sometimes thousands, each one annotated with cryptic notes. Handled, delivered, green. Maya's fingers tightened on the paper. This wasn't carelessness. This was laundering. She shoved the ledger into her bag and locked the drawer again. She had just stood to leave when the lobby bell chimed. Her pulse jumped. Through the small window in the office door, she saw a tall man step into the lobby. He wasn't a guest. She knew that immediately. His suit was too crisp, too tailored. He carried himself with the slow, deliberate confidence of someone who had never been told no. Anthony approached him cautiously. Maya strained to hear through the door. Can I help you? I'm looking for the new owner, the man said smoothly. Anthony hesitated, then glanced toward the office. She's not available right now. The man smiled faintly as though he'd expected that answer. Tell her Vincent stopped by. She'll know why. Maya's blood went cold. Vincent. She waited until the bell above the door chimed again, until Anthony's voice came through the door in a low whisper. Maya, what was that? Maya opened the door, her face pale but steady. Trouble. She didn't explain further. Instead, she called Brenda Witt, Harvey's legal rep, her fingers tapping the desk while she waited for the line to connect. Yes, Miss Williams? Brenda's voice was calm as always. Did you or Mr. Whitmore ever look into Carl's financial activity before transferring this place to me? There was a pause. He was advised to walk away clean. He didn't want to inherit baggage. Well, Maya said, staring at the locked drawer she'd just closed, he might have gifted me more than a hotel. Someone was laundering money through this place, and they might still be trying. I'll inform Mr. Whitmore, Brenda replied. But be careful, Miss Williams. People who build systems like that don't appreciate the lights being turned on. Maya hung up and stood in the office for a long moment, her hand pressed flat against the file cabinet as though holding herself steady. That night, she stayed long after closing. She spread every ledger, every invoice, every receipt across the office floor like puzzle pieces, marking them with sticky notes, drawing arrows, connecting dots. By midnight, the pattern was clear. 3 companies, 1 network, all pointing toward the same shadow figure behind the scenes. Her phone buzzed again. A text. Walk away, Maya. Enjoy the hotel. Repaint the walls. Serve your cobbler, but stop chasing shadows. No name. But now she had one. Vincent Ma. Yia stared at the message for a long time, then slid the phone into her pocket. No, she whispered into the quiet office. Not this time. The lobby was too quiet. Maya stood behind the reception desk, flipping through reservation cards with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. The chandelier above cast a lazy golden glow, and every creak of the floorboards upstairs made her pulse jump. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was waiting. At 9:42 p.m., the glass doors swung open. He walked in like he belonged there. Tall, perfectly tailored suit, black overcoat cutting a sharp silhouette against the streetlight behind him. His cologne reached her before his voice did. Evening. Maya straightened. We're full tonight. Vincent chuckled, the sound low and amused, as though she'd just told him a joke. That's a shame. I'm not here for a room. Just wanted to see what all the buzz was about. Buzz? About the new owner. He stepped closer, his polished shoes silent on the lobby tile. I have to say, you've cleaned up nicely. New lighting, fresh paint. Feels softer, less interrogative. Maya gripped the edge of the desk, refusing to back up. Do I know you? Call me Vincent. Her throat tightened. The name from the invoices, from the ledgers, from the text message. Vincent leaned one hand on the desk, close enough that she could see the gold cufflinks glinting in the chandelier light. His smile never reached his eyes. You've been busy, he said, calling vendors that preferred to stay invisible, digging through files most people would have burned. I'm just trying to run a hotel. No, he said, the smile vanishing. You're trying to play detective in a story you don't understand. Maya didn't flinch. Then help me understand. Why would someone like you bother showing up at all, unless you had something to hide? For the first time, his jaw twitched. Smart girl, he said finally. But smart doesn't mean safe. You should be careful about the kind of attention you attract. You don't scare me. He straightened, brushing an invisible speck from his sleeve. You should be. Then he turned and walked out, the door chime ringing like a shot as it closed behind him. Maya stood there for several seconds before realizing she was holding her breath. Anthony appeared from the hallway, wide-eyed. Was that him? Yes, her voice was hoarse. Change every lock, tonight if you can, and get the cameras working. Real cameras, no more plastic dummies. The retaliation started at dawn. At 8:00 a.m., Jenny opened the walk-in freezer to find it had failed sometime during the night. Everything inside was ruined, thawed into a puddle on the floor. At 9:30, the fire inspector showed up unannounced, citing 3 violations, including one for an extinguisher that had passed inspection just 3 weeks ago. At 11:15, a delivery truck backed too sharply into the loading dock, shattering 2 trash bins and cracking the concrete. The driver claimed the brakes slipped. By 2:00 p.m., Maya's hands were shaking as she filled out insurance paperwork. This ain't random, Carla said, arms crossed from the chair across the lobby. Maya didn't look up. I know. Then what are we doing? We hold the line. That night, she called the staff into the lobby for an unscheduled meeting. The chandelier flickered above them, but no one made a joke about it this time. That man who came by, Maya said, voice steady but low. He wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to scare me. And when bullies feel you pushing back, they hit harder. We could lose the place, Miguel muttered from the back. We could, Maya agreed, but if we stay silent, we lose more than that. Anthony raised his hand slightly. What are you going to do? Maya looked around at them, at Carla with her arms folded, at Jenny twisting her apron in nervous fingers, at Miguel scowling like he didn't want to care as much as he clearly did, and something in her steadied. Tell the truth, she said simply. 2 days later, she was sitting across from Sarah Monroe in a quiet diner 2 neighborhoods away. Sarah's trench coat was still damp from the drizzle outside, and a press badge was clipped to her collar. I've read your emails, Sarah said, stirring her tea. Listen to your voicemail 3 times. What you're sitting on, this isn't small. I know. Maya slid the flash drive across the table. Sarah didn't touch it right away. You understand that if I run this, it won't just hit Vincent Kane. If there are offshore connections here, it could take down banks, suppliers, maybe even city officials. If they're guilty, Maya said, voice like steel, let them fall. Sarah studied her for a moment, then picked up the flash drive. All right, Miss Williams, buckle in. Back at the Velvet Lantern, the air had shifted again. The sabotage stopped. No more surprise inspections, no more broken equipment. But the silence was worse. It felt like standing in the ocean just before a tidal wave hit. Every knock at the door made Maya flinch. Every car that slowed outside made her heart climb into her throat. And still, she worked. She digitized the office records, replaced every vendor with verified local businesses, installed real security cameras. At night, she would sit at the front desk, staring at the glass doors, waiting for whatever came next. Smart girl, he said finally. But smart doesn't mean safe. You should be careful about the kind of attention you attract. You don't scare me. He straightened, brushing an invisible speck from his sleeve. You should be. Then he turned and walked out, the door chime ringing like a shot as it closed behind him. Maya stood there for several seconds before realizing she was holding her breath. Anthony appeared from the hallway, wide-eyed. Was that him? Yes, her voice was hoarse. Change every lock, tonight if you can, and get the cameras working. Real cameras, no more plastic dummies. The retaliation started at dawn. At 8:00 a.m., Jenny opened the walk-in freezer to find it had failed sometime during the night. Everything inside was ruined, thawed into a puddle on the floor. At 9:30, the fire inspector showed up unannounced, citing 3 violations, including one for an extinguisher that had passed inspection just 3 weeks ago. At 11:15, a delivery truck backed too sharply into the loading dock, shattering 2 trash bins and cracking the concrete. The driver claimed the brakes slipped. By 2:00 p.m., Maya's hands were shaking as she filled out insurance paperwork. This ain't random, Carla said, arms crossed from the chair across the lobby. Maya didn't look up. I know. Then what are we doing? We hold the line. That night, she called the staff into the lobby for an unscheduled meeting. The chandelier flickered above them, but no one made a joke about it this time. That man who came by, Maya said, voice steady but low. He wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to scare me, and when bullies feel you pushing back, they hit harder. We could lose the place, Miguel muttered from the back. We could, Maya agreed, but if we stay silent, we lose more than that. Anthony raised his hand slightly. What are you going to do? Maya looked around at them. Every knock at the door made Maya flinch. Every car that slowed outside made her heart climb into her throat, and still, she worked. She digitized the office records, replaced every vendor with verified local businesses, installed real security cameras. At night, she would sit at the front desk, staring at the glass doors, waiting for whatever came next. When the article dropped on Sunday morning, it was like lighting a match in a dark room. Local hotel at center of multi-million-dollar laundering scheme, fraud network linked to investor Vincent Kane. By noon, Maya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. News stations, radio shows, bloggers, even former guests asking if she still had peach cobbler on the menu. But by evening, it wasn't just reporters at her door. 2 unmarked cars pulled into the lot and 2 detectives stepped inside. Miss Williams? One asked, flashing a badge. That's me. We'd like to talk. The detectives were polite, but their questions cut like scalpels. Maya sat in the office behind the lobby, the same room where she'd first unlocked Carl's ledgers and answered everything carefully. What made you start digging? One of them asked, flipping open a notepad. Because none of it made sense, Maya said, and because too many people assumed I wouldn't ask. They nodded, scribbling notes. Do you still have copies of the records? Maya reached into the locked cabinet and pulled out a flash drive. 2, actually. One for you, one for the journalist who broke the story. If anything happens to me, she'll publish the rest. The detectives exchanged a glance. Miss Williams, has anyone threatened you directly? She slid Vincent's sleek black business card across the desk, along with the text messages she'd saved. If this doesn't count as a threat, she said, then I guess I'm imagining things. They left an hour later with evidence bags and careful reassurance. Thanks. When Maya stepped back into the lobby, half the staff was clustered by the front desk, watching through the windows. I'm not in trouble, she told them, raising her voice enough for everyone to hear. But the people who use this hotel for crime? They are! The tension broke like a glass hitting the floor. Carla let out a laugh, sharp, relieved, and Anthony exhaled so hard he nearly doubled over. Jenny wiped her eyes and didn't bother to hide it. That night, Maya didn't go home. She stayed in the lobby until dawn, sitting in the velvet chair nearest the window, watching the streetlights click off one by one. When the sun finally rose over the South Bronx, she stood and walked through the hotel, floor by floor. She passed the empty banquet room, imagining it full of music and neighbors again. She peeked into room 206, the one with the ghost complaints, and smiled faintly at the quiet. She opened the manager's office and set a new label on the door, Operations Center. This was no longer the place where Carl hid his secrets. This was the heart of the Lantern now. By noon, there was another knock at the door. This time, not a detective, not a reporter, but Harvey Whitmore himself. He looked different than the man who had strode into the lobby the week before. The sharp edges were gone. His navy sweater made him look almost approachable, almost tired. Maya, he said softly. Mr. Whitmore. They stood in silence for a moment, the faint hum of the vending machine filling the air. You did what I should have done a long time ago, Harvey said finally. No, Maya replied, crossing her arms. I did what you were too afraid to finish. He flinched but didn't argue. Instead, he held out a manila envelope. These are the final transfer documents. No leases, no loopholes. You own the land now, too. Free and clear. Maya opened the envelope and skimmed the pages. Everything was there. The title, the deed, the signatures. This time, there was no room left for doubt. I don't want anything else hanging over your head, Harvey said. Not from me, not from the past. For the first time, Maya saw him not as the man who had handed her a mess, but as someone trying, however imperfectly, to fix what he had broken. Thank you, she said quietly. He nodded once. Goodbye, Maya. She didn't stop him when he turned to go. That night, she called the staff into the lobby for one last meeting. Contractors had lowered the old hotel sign earlier that morning, leaving the front bare for the first time in decades. The new sign sat outside, wrapped in a canvas sheet. This building has seen storms, Maya said, standing on a step stool so every face could see her. But you all held the line with me. This name change isn't just paint and metal, it's a declaration. She nodded to Carla, who helped her pull the canvas free. The new sign gleamed in the glow of the streetlight. The Lantern House, a place to belong. Applause filled the lobby. Not polite, not hesitant, but full-throated and real. Someone started cheering. Jenny wiped her eyes. Even Miguel cracked a grin. For the first time in months, Maya let herself breathe. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the lobby was quiet again, Maya stood at the front steps, a cup of chamomile tea warming her hands. The air was cool, the street empty. That's when she saw it. A black envelope sat on the welcome mat, as if it had been waiting for her all along. Maya crouched and picked it up. No stamp, no return address. Her name was written on the front in silver ink, Pete's, perfectly centered. She carried it inside, sat down at the desk, and opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, no letterhead, no signature, just one line, typed in a crisp serif font. You may think you've won, but some debts don't disappear, they wait. Maya sat still for a long time, staring at the words until the letters blurred. Then she folded the paper neatly, slid it into a new folder she labeled Threats, and locked it in the cabinet with the rest of her files. She stood, walked to the lobby window, and looked out at the glowing new sign. Then let them wait, she whispered. The Lantern House glowed steady in the night, a lone light in the Bronx darkness. And for the first time since this all began, Maya smiled. The fight wasn't over, but she was ready.